Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Spoilers, my new internet show where I review new movies that I've seen. These are going to be, could be a good movie, could be a bad movie. They're only going to be good movies. And to give you an update, I am now up to 1,000 movies on IMDb, but I'm reaching to the bottom of the barrel, so I think that's about where I'm at. But now it's going to be 1001 because I just saw a new movie this week, X-Men Days of Future Past. And also, as a heads up, my car is still in the shop as well, and they said the part will be in, and it'll be in the middle of June. So I'm still in a rental vehicle, and I did have to take it into the rental place to get some, turn some lights off because the routine maintenance lights came on because I've driven it so much. So this movie was amazing, and here's my review. If the movie starts out, it's in the past, or it's in the future, and everything is terrible, and there's dead bodies everywhere, and Patrick Stewart's saying, like, oh, you know, the folly of man, you know, blah, 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 and then it goes into the credit scenes, and then it's still in the future, and the future X-Men are in this base, and there's Sentinels coming, a bunch of Sentinels, and it's pretty scary. If you're a comic book fan. If you're a regular person, it's probably not as scary, but I was on the edge of tears for most of this movie because it was so depressingly good. Just because I was so attached to all of the comic book characters. But the Sentinels get there, and they're all fighting them off, and it was really cool. Iceman was there, Colossus was there, Shadowcat, and then they had some new people. They had Blink, who's a teleporter. They have Warpath, Bishop, and Sunspot. And it was cool to see them all because Bobby Drake's sporting a little beard. And he looks, he looks older, and they're all in their prime, but they're dying, and these Sentinels can adapt. They basically can change their form, which is not how it was in the comics, but it was a really cool twist. They can change their form to be whatever. So Iceman's freezes a Sentinel, and the Sentinel turns into fire, and then Sunspot's burning a Sentinel, and he turns into ice. You get the picture. And then Shadowcat runs into this room with Bishop and starts doing that mind thing on him and sends him back in time and then says, sorry, suckers, when she's looking up at the Sentinels. And then it flashes forward to, you're like, what happened? And then a plane lands in China, and they come off the plane. The other people are at China already, and then Professor Xavier comes off the plane with Magneto, Wolverine, and Storm, and you're like, oh, cool, Halle Berry's here. And you're like, oh, it's Hugh Jackman again, and here he is. And the sexy devil. And they all come in, and they say, okay, well, what Kitty's been doing, Ellen Page, she's been sending Bishop's consciousness back into his body previous times to warn them of when the Sentinels will come so they won't be there. So they're dying a bunch of times, but they're going back in time to prevent it. And they say, well, look, we can't keep doing this. We want to send... They pinpointed where the Sentinels were created, which was Peter Dinklage, the little Bolivar Trask guy. He created the Sentinels, and then Mystique kills him, and because of that, they push the Sentinel program forward, and that's the point. It was in 1974, which is when the old X-Men were there, and Xavier says, we need to go back and stop her at that point, but I can't do it. I mean, I could go back, but my brain's going to explode. And Wolverine says, well, what about a brain that can heal? And you think, he's the main character of the movie. And so Shadowcat sends him back and says, okay, well, you got to think happy thoughts, because if you get feisty, you may mess things up. And he goes, well, okay, well, that's going to be tough. And so he goes back and finds Professor Xavier, James McAvoy, and he also finds Beast as well. And they're in the dilapidated place. And he tells them, he goes, I'm from the future. And they go, okay, we believe you right away. It was wild. I liked that, though. They made things a lot easier. So they immediately believe him, and they say, okay, well, we need to find Magneto. And Xavier goes, oh, geez, well, good luck with that. And it turns out Magneto had knocked him off his back, shot a bullet in his back, and so he couldn't walk. And Beast has this serum now that he's been giving to himself and Xavier, and the serum tempers their powers and gives them their physical forms back. So Beast is a human, but he can change into Beast now. Xavier can walk, but he has no mind powers because of the serum. And so Magneto is in prison at the bottom of the Pentagon because he killed JFK by curving the bullet, just like in real life. And so Wolverine's like, I think I know a guy. And they go and get Quicksilver, who was phenomenal, and I'm really mad because he's also in the Avengers as a different character, but he did so good in this movie. The best scene in the movie is with him. It's a slow-mo scene when they break Magneto out of prison. He's going, because he's going so fast, it's basically stops time, and he's walking around doing all this cool stuff, listening to some classic 70s music. They break him out, then they find Mystique, who's right about to kill Peter Dinklage, and Peter Dinklage's assistant is Stryker from the first movies, as a young person, so that's got some weight to it as well. I was in tears, almost in tears, most of the movie because it was so depressingly good in this movie. I may have mentioned that already, but this movie was amazing. And so they stop her from killing him, and then Magneto takes it one step further and tries to kill Mystique. He says, she may try and do this again, who knows? And so he shoots her with a bullet in the leg, and you find out that they used Mystique in the future. They had used Mystique's shape-shifting powers to make the Sentinels be able to shapeshift. And so the problem was Mystique then escapes, but some of her blood's on the ground, and so they swab it up and get it, the Sentinel people. So it's like they still did it, and so they screwed up, and Magneto goes to himself and he goes, I screwed up. And he leaves and goes and does his own thing, which I'll explain later. And then the other three people there are like, well, we have to find out we have to find Mystique, she's gone. And so they're basically searching the world for Mystique, and Xavier's like, well, let's just use Cerebro. And Xavier's like, I don't want to use my powers, I want to be on drugs. And then Wolverine's like, just look into my mind and you'll know the truth. And he looks into his mind and he's like, I don't want your future. And then he goes, don't look at my future, look at your future. And then Xavier in the future starts talking to McAvoy. Great scene. He's like, you need to hope again. You need to hope again, Xavier. And he's like, but I don't want to. And then he comes back and he goes, okay, I'm ready to hope again. And so he gets there, finds Mystique, and in the meantime, Magneto is he found the Sentinel base, and the Sentinels have no metal in them, so they can fight Magneto as well, and he secretly sneaks in and puts all this metal in the Sentinels. You're like, ooh, that's interesting. And then they find Mystique, and they keep trying to convince Mystique. They're not there. He's projecting to her, and he's like, Mystique, don't do this. Do the right thing. And she's like, I need to help the mutants. And it all culminates into President Nixon's doing a demonstration with Dinklage in front of all of America about the Sentinels. And so, as he does the presentation, the Sentinels start moving, and he's like, I didn't turn these on, and you're like, uh-oh, Magneto. Magneto lifts up an entire stadium and puts the stadium over the White House where they all are, so it's like in an arena now. Everyone retreats inside, and they're basically have this huge fight, and then Magneto televises the entire thing. And at this point, there's been flashbacks now into the future where Wolverine, he saw Stryker and flipped out because Stryker's the guy who put all the metal in his arms. And so he's like freaking out in the future, sleeping, and he claws Kitty, and so she's really injured. And in the meantime, the Sentinels are coming in the future, and you're like, oh no, they're all going to die. And so it's getting close to the end, and it's scary because they keep flashing forward. The Sentinels are getting closer and closer, and they're like, well, we can try and hold them off. And so Magneto's like throwing metal at him, Storm's using her powers, and in the past, Magneto is basically televising. He says, mutants are the future, you try to stop us, we're going to kill you. And Wolverine tries to fight him, but Wolverine has his regular claws because he didn't have the metal put in yet because it was in the past. And Magneto decimates him. He puts these metal rods through him all over his body and throws him into a river, and he's drowning. Hello?
Oh, are you doing something?
No. What's going on?
Recording.
Yeah, I was just making my video.
Am I in the middle of a video?
Yeah, you can come in if you want, give a little quick review.
What are we doing?
This is a guest appearance by Stephen Klein, who came to the movie with me. Stevie, what do you think of the movie?
X-Men was great. Better than all the other Marvel movies out right now.
Okay, well, Captain America's still out, and Captain America's pretty good. What'd you want?
I deauthorized all the iTunes computers in the house.
Okay, perfect.
Well, no, for your account. So
yeah, and I'll deauthorize mine as well.
No, I logged on your account, deauthorized all your 5.
On my computer?
No, on Mom's computer. Your account is now only authorized on mine, so reauthorize.
You need to make mine the main reauthorization.
Just do it next time you get on your computer. Just authorize.
But if you end up being the main account, that's gonna be a problem.
There's no main account. Currently, your account just floats in the cloud.
Oh,
You
don't.
authorize it to 5 computers.
Okay.
Right now you're at 1, my computer.
Okay.
So next time you get a new computer,
Mine will be number
yourself.
2,
Okay.
but it should be number 1.
It doesn't keep track of authority like that. It's just 5
Okay.
computers.
All right. Well, okay. Guess we're working on iTunes. So then Mystique shows up out of nowhere and points a gun right at or beats the crap out of Magneto. And they're televising it, and Xavier starts helping her and says, "You don't have to do this." And she knocks Magneto to the ground, and she's got her gun pointed right at the president. And Magneto's sitting there, and Xavier pinned him to the ground. So Xavier is just doing this, like pinning him down on the ground, and he. Mystique decides not to shoot him, and so she's like, "I'm a good person." Drops her gun, and then the president's like, "Thank goodness." And then they don't arrest Magneto. Magneto says something like, "If you leave me, you know they're going to get me, Charles." And he goes, "I know." And then he lets go and he says, "Goodbye, old friend." And then he flies up out of there, gone. All the Sentinels are destroyed. And then at that point, in the future, it's kind of sad. Magneto got like a thing impaled through him, and he's sitting there with Charles, and he goes, "Charles, I didn't have too many precious moments with you." And he goes, "I agree." And then they hold hands, and then Magneto dies, and then the Sentinels come in, and they killed Storm, and they're right about to put fire right onto Xavier, and then everything disappears. Everything is gone. And you're like, they did it. But what's the new future? And I don't want to know your future. And then it goes back, and at that point, Wolverine wakes up, and it's in the future. And Kitty had warned him at the very beginning of the movie that he would be the only person that would know about this. And at some point, when they're flying on a plane, he tells, because this is the best part of the movie, he tells Xavier, he says, he goes, "Hey, Bub, when we're in the future, you need to find us and make sure you make the X-Men. You got to do it." And he's like, "Okay." And he wakes up, and he's in the school, and he gets out of bed, and he looks, and there's students running around everywhere, and you're like, is this gonna be the way it is? And he looks, and he looks into a classroom, and Storm's teaching a class, and he looks in another classroom. Kitty and Colossus are together in a class, and you're like, because they're in love, and they are in the comics. And then you see Rogue and Iceman together again, and then he walks downstairs and he sees Jean, and he just, she's glowing, and he goes, "Jean, you're alive," and she's like, "Yeah." And he goes to touch her face, and a hand grabs his hand, and it's Scott Summers, and he goes, "Hey, watch it, buddy." And he goes, "It's really good to see you, Scott." And he goes, "It's good to see you too, buddy." Xavier's right there, and he goes, "What happened? Is everything back to normal?" He goes, "What are you talking about?" And he says, "I feel like I just woke up," and Xavier, best part of the movie, goes, "You're back, Logan." And he goes, "Yeah, I'm back." And he goes, "You made it. I did everything that you said. I got everyone." And you're swinging arms and getting excited. And he says, "Well, what was the last thing that you remember?" And he goes, "1974, I was drowning." And he goes, "Well, we have a lot to catch up on then." And then he does the mind thing, and it just does a quick thing of they pulled him out of the water, and he's still alive. And they're like, "He's still alive." And they go, "What do you want to do with him, Mr. Stryker?" And it's Stryker, and he goes, "I'll take him from here." But then it's Mystique's eyes and Stryker, so you don't really know what happened, but you do know this. Now everything in X-Men 3 didn't happen, which is perfect. Everything in Wolverine Origins, I hope now, didn't happen, which is perfect. Credits roll, and then the best thing happens. End credits scene rolls. It's in ancient Egypt, and everyone's going, "En Sabanur, En Sabanur," which is Apocalypse. And then it shows Apocalypse, and he's building the pyramids, like he's throwing bricks together, building the pyramids, and then off in the distance you see the 4 horsemen on the ridge. It's perfect. Rating 10 out of 10. And join in next week as I review the next movie. I don't know what it's going to be, as I don't know what movies come out next week, but I will be going to see a good movie, and if there aren't any good movies, I'm going to just review a movie that I have seen, because as I said, I will not pay for a movie that I don't want to see.